This page is the cover of Total 64 magazine, featuring Hulk Hogan hyping WCW versus NWO for the N64. It also teases GoldenEye 007, Banjo-Kazooie, and Conker's Quest from the E3 show. Plus, there's a free Turok comic inside. Looks like a jam-packed issue. The next page is a full-page advertisement for Sightings, a magazine investigating alien phenomena. The cover features an alien head, headlines about UFOs, a secret UK base, and an interview with an alien. The tagline is, "It's out there." This page welcomes us to Total 64 Issue 6, with an image featuring Banjo-Kazooie on the left, and an angry wrestler, Hulkster, on the right, presumably. The editor jokes about whether the Hulkster scared readers off, as it seems he didn't want to go to E3. The text promotes the magazine's first play coverage of WCW vs NWO, and teases news and gossip from E3, where Nintendo had a huge stand. Other games mentioned include GoldenEye 007, Banjo-Kazooie Conker's Quest, Top Gear Rally, Robotech 64, and NFL Quarterback Club 98. This page is the contents page of Total 64 magazine, featuring reviews, previews, and a competition to win 64 games. The reviews section highlights Hexen 64, questioning if it lives up to the Doom hype. Go! Troublemakers also gets a mention, described as bizarre Japanese platformers that aren't actually that great. Pre-plays features Duke Nukem 64, claiming it's looking good, and WCW vs NWO, with promises of being the best wrestling game ever and exclusive to the N64. We see wrestler Sting featured, pointing at the viewer. Warrington Mail Vorins. The next page is the magazine's contents section, boasting a variety of features. First looks include Robotech 64, and what it claims to be a space epic in the making. There's an E3 show report, NFL Quarterback Club 98 and Multi-Racing Championship. Turok comic gets a mention, and tips for Blastcore are also featured. War Gods is also featured, with promises of all the moves and all the cheats. Finally, there's the regular contents, editorials, news, a review roundup, a firing line, and subscription info. This page kicks off with Total 64 news, focusing on the Arcade 64, essentially a N64 arcade board developed by Seta. It uses the same CPU as the home console, with added sound and graphics chips, which should allow Nintendo games to make a reappearance in arcades. The page lists European release dates, including Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey, Blast Corps, Killer Instinct Gold, and Mortal Kombat Trilogy for July. August brings Hexen, NBA Hangtime, and Lylat Wars, Star Fox 64. September sees Cruisin' USA, Doom 64, and GoldenEye hitting shelves. October features Multi-Racing Championship, and the third quarter of 97 includes F1 Pole Position 64, Robotron 64, and War Gods. The article then shifts to Hudson's customizable Bomberman 64 controller, which apparently unlocks a secret multiplayer level in the game. It's described as a clever marketing ploy, and while a release outside Japan hasn't been confirmed, it's expected to happen. This page is a rundown of upcoming US releases for the N64. The main feature is On Dream, now unveiled as Banjo-Kazooie, bearing a resemblance to Mario 64 with improved graphics. The reviewer mentions that the E3 version was 75% complete and looking good, adding substance to Miyamoto's claim that Mario 64 only used 60% of the N64's capabilities. Also featured is a bit about Mad Catz peripherals and their absence in the US, with a note about $2 off coupons for Star Fox 64 at various retailers. The page lists release dates for July, Dark Rift, and Multi-Racing Championship. August includes Clay Fighter 63 and a third, Top Gear Rally, International Superstar Soccer 64, Tetrasphere, and GoldenEye 007. September brings F1 Pole Position 64, Mace, The Dark Age, Robotron 64, MLB featuring Ken Griffey Jr., and Lamborghini 64. Looking ahead to Fall 97, there's Aero Fighters Assault, Duke Nukem 64, and Robotech, Crystal Dreams. October sees Bomberman 64, MK Mythologies, Sub-Zero, and Mischief Makers. November features Extreme Egg, Mystical Ninja 64, NFL Quarterback Club 98, San Francisco Rush, Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey 98, WCW vs NWO, World Tour, Superman, the animated series, and Banjo-Kazooie. December includes Conker's Quest, Fourth quarter 97 includes Body Harvest, Jeopardy, and Legion X. There are also several games listed as unknown with release dates, sometime in the next 12 months. Please provide the text you would like me to summarize. And North Cheshire Blah. This page features a preview of 064, comparing it favorably to Wipeout on the PlayStation, with claims of impressive 60 frames per second gameplay. Screenshots hint at the game's visuals. There is also speculation about a sequel to the Star Wars N64 title, Shadows of the Empire, along with suggestions for other potential Star Wars games on the console, like Cogswing vs. TIE Fighter, Rebel Assault 2, or Dark Forces. There's a Japanese release date list for the N64, including games like Doom 64, GoldenEye, Yoshi's Island 64, and League 11 Beat 1997. The next page features a 64 news update, kicking off with a first look at Superman 64. The reviewer notes the game was shown in a corner at E3. It seems the Man of Steel is battling Lex Luthor and his Lexoskal 5000. The game is in early development. Following this is a preview of Turok 2, Seeds of Evil. The sequel includes revisiting areas, improved graphics with directional lighting, real-time shadows, and enhanced textures. There is also a rumor about an over-the-shoulder view, like Tomb Raider or Mario 64. The page also lists upcoming games including Chameleon Twist, Hyper Olympic in Nagano, Legend of Zelda 64, Mario Paint 64, Mother 3, Pocket Monster 64, and SimCity 64 due in March 1998. The list continues with titles due in spring 98, like Jungle Emperor Leo, Nintendo. A final list of unknown release dates includes Battle Dancers, Blade and Barrel, Body Harvest, Buggy Boogie, Cabbage, Cavalry Battle 3000, Creator, Quampa, Dracula 3D, Dual Heroes, 064, Fire Emblem 64, Flight Simulator, Golf, Ikazuchi no Gotoku Chinese Chess, Jikyo Golf Tournament 97, Jisen Pachislo Hishuhu, Kindaichi Shonen no Jikenbo, Kirby's Air Ride and Macross Another. This page presents more N64 news. First up is Forsaken, which the magazine believes will improve upon its predecessor. Next, Silicon Valley is previewed, described as a potentially strange game involving controlling a robot fighting evolved nanobots like four-wheel drive lions and chainsaw-wielding llamas. Finally, Cooler Borders is previewed, being compared to Wave Race 64. There is also a list of TBA games: Dimension, Nintama Rantaro 64, Ogre Battle Saga Pachinko World 64, Pilot Wings 64-2, Pocket Monster RPG Pro Mahjong, Simcopter 64, Space Dynamites, Super Mario 64-2, Super Mario RPG 2, Super Robot Spirits, Tetrasphere, Toucan Road, Brave Spirits, Ultra Donkey Kong, Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey, Wild Choppers, and Zelda DD. Australian release dates are shown for July, August and September, and November, with GoldenEye in November. This page of Total 64 magazine is dedicated to N64 news updates, featuring FIFA sequel, suggesting a sequel to FIFA 64 is in early development and due late 1998. Next is Jeopardy, which focuses on the classic game show. It boasts over 4,000 questions from 650 categories. Finally, Wheel of Fortune is covered, which is also an American game show market due around Christmas. It features 3-player simultaneous play, with over 4,000 puzzles, and 31 different categories. Upcoming games also listed on the left include Yoshi's Island 64 in December, followed by Body Harvest, Mission Impossible, MK Mythologies, Sub-Zero, Robotech Crystal Dreams, Rumble Pack Super Mario 64, Rumble Pack Wave Race 64, Cruisin' World Zelda 64, Fi-Zero 64, Attack Biofreaks Centipede X, Duke Nukem 64, Joust Epic Kirby's Air Ride Mace, The Dark Age, Mortal Kombat 4, Mystical Ninja 64, Quake 64, Rebel Moon Revolution, San Francisco Rush, and Unreal. No release dates are given. The next page is a full-page advert for Blaze Accessories, urging you to beat the system with their range of Ultra 64 add-ons. These include a 1MB memory card, an SFX 64 game adapter for playing import games, an extender controller extension cable, SCART video cables for enhanced picture quality, and an AV cable compatible with both the N64 and Super NES. Contact details for Fire International Limited are at the bottom for further information. There. This page features a preview of Robotech 64, a game showcased at E3. The article mentions that it's being developed by Crystal Dreams, and it is a new saga set in the Robotech universe. The reviewer notes, the early version looked promising, but the enemy AI was lacking, making them unable to move or fight back. It also draws comparisons of the Veritech fighter to Transformer toys, and there are sketches of characters taken from the TV series, along with new characters to interact with, and apparently kill. This page continues the preview of Robotech 64, focusing on the game's storyline, which involves the player assuming the role of Kyle Bartley, an independent pilot with a mysterious past. The article suggests that the game will combine space combat with character interaction, referencing elements from the TV show. The reviewer jokes about the enemy A needing improvement, calling them sitting ducks. There's also a section highlighting the transforming Veritech craft, along with character art that the reviewer humorously describes as stereotype girl, Mark Ashford, Miles Guttery, the simulant from Red Dwarf, and square-jawed handsome hero type bloke, or something like that. This page showcases Multi-Racing Championship for the N64, touted as the first true racing game for the console, outside of Mario Kart. The preview highlights that there are 10 different courses, the cars are customizable, and the game features Grand Prix, Time Trial, versus Alsol, and Match Race modes. Despite its potential, the reviewer notes, the cars don't take damage from environmental hazards, which is a bit of a bummer. The next page features a preview of NFL Quarterback Club 98 for the N64, suggesting it might dethrone Madden. It mentions the game is endorsed by Brett Favre, features beautifully rendered 3D graphics and management options, and can use the high resolution of the N64. The reviewer also mentions play-by-play commentary from Marv Albert. The bottom half of the page is an advert for Madeira Games, promoting us machines in stock. It lists available games like Mario Kart, GoldenEye, and Star Fox 64, highlighting them as import specialists with guaranteed next-day delivery. The next page is an advert for Duke Nukem 64. It features Duke himself standing atop a pile of defeated aliens, weapons in hand, ready to cause havoc, and generally kick ass. The tagline says it all. He's rough, he's tough, and he's got a wicked sense of humor. Move over Doom and Hexen. The Duke's back in town. This page is a preview of Duke Nukem 64, and it appears that the reviewer is quite impressed, even with the early, pre-alpha playable code. They humorously note that while it might be stretching things to say Duke Nukem 64 is in their hands, the advanced version shown is remarkable. The review highlights the playability, atmosphere, violence, and humor being replicated on the N64. Duke's abilities, such as swimming, running, shooting, kicking, and using a jetpack, are mentioned as new additions to the Doom-style FPS genre that Duke helped pioneer. The reviewer concludes that the game has the potential to compete with 3D Realm's other masterpieces, with its top-tier playability. The next page continues the preview of Duke Nukem 64, and it seems the reviewer is diving deeper into what makes this N64 port special. They highlight the single-player Duke match experience, noting it still holds up even without a deathmatch option like in Doom 64. Split-screen multiplayer is the way to go on the N64, despite the strategic disadvantages of everyone seeing what you're up to. There's mention of the level design, which seems to be based on PC levels but with added visual flair. New weapons are on the cards too, like the Expander Ray, a hilarious weapon which swells enemies until they explode. A grenade launcher is also mentioned as a powerful addition to Duke's arsenal. The page features various screenshots showcasing classic Duke gameplay, including Duke jetpacking through a level, battling enemies, and wielding different weapons. It also highlights the gunning for trouble, with images of the rifle, plasma cannon, shrinker, and laser mines. The next page is all about Duke Nukem 64, focusing on what makes it stand out, especially compared to the PC version. The reviewer humorously refers to the missing elements from the PC version as Duke the Dirty. They touch on the game's reception and mention fellow N64 titles like Mario 64 and Pilot Wings. There's a discussion about the visual impact of the game, and some disappointment over the lack of gameplay advances like jumping, and the omission of a proper deathmatch option. The reviewer talks about the unique atmosphere Duke Nukem creates, with cool little touches and familiar quips. They also mention new additions like the Expander, a new weapon. Screenshots include Duke's pistol, grenade launcher, expander, and twin machine pistols. This page is a look at W vs. Endogru for the Nintendo 64. The reviewer kicks things off with a bit of wrestling humor, questioning the whole largest arms in the world and Hulkamania concept. It mentions the popularity of wrestling in America, with the reviewer joking about Europeans' lack of understanding of this macho sport. They then touch on the merchandising that followed, turning wrestlers into huge stars. There's a screenshot of the wrestler selection screen, featuring Rick Steiner, described as a chunky fellow with a beard and bandana combo. The reviewer seems to find the free-for-all mode particularly enjoyable. The next page features more WCW vs NWO for the Nintendo 64. Ric Flair is called the blonde bombshell with a nasty taste in green pants. They mention the World Wrestling Federation, and then cheekily suggest the news habit of making up new abbreviations. There are screenshots of various wrestlers in action, plus a section dedicated to the Incredible Hulkster and his achievements in film and TV. The man that launched 1,000 sticker books is featured. This page previews WCW vs NWO for the Nintendo 64, showcasing screenshots and some light-hearted commentary on the wrestlers. They poke fun at the size of some wrestlers and the news' general image. There's mention of Hollywood Hogan's transition to a villainous character. The review praises the game's potential for authenticity and a wide range of recognizable moves, despite only playing an early version. This page continues the preview of WCW vs NWO for the Nintendo 64. There are screenshots of the in-game action, including double leaping moves and player selection screens featuring Rick and Scott Steiner. The article jokes about the game's realism when it comes to character exhaustion and the fun of beating up opponents. It also touches on the NWO and its members, including Razor Ramon, Randy Savage, Dennis Rodman, Sting, and SYXX, who they comically point out, his name is a combination of the numbers 1, 2 and 3. Overall, it is hyping up the game's potential for enjoyable wrestling action. This page shows a variety of moves in WCW vs NWO, a wrestling game for the Nintendo 64, with the title, Kick 'em While They're Down. The page shows several moves that each character has when the opponent is on the canvas. It then continues to describe the game's unveiling at the Atlanta E3 weekend and a party at the CNN building, with an appearance by Ric Flair. The article jokes about the absence of other superstars and suggests that High Voltage topped the card, because the real superstars left to avoid the reviewer. There is a screenshot of a match in Round 1. The next page features a preview of the wrestling game WCW vs NWO for the Nintendo 64. It jokes that the game isn't trying to be a close reproduction of reality, because who wants realism? The article lists 20 huge WCW and NWO wrestlers including the Hulkster, Lex Luger, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ric Flair, Sting and Giant, with 60 wrestlers in total to choose from. The reviewer talks about Rumble Pack compatibility for gut punches and body slams. They joke about a Rumble suit idea. The page includes screenshots and images of wrestlers, like Hollywood Hulk Hogan and Sting. The review says that with the right ingredients, WCW vs NWO will be hard to beat. This page is a E3 show report, humorously titled The E3 Expert, discussing the year's E3 in Atlanta, noting that attendance dropped by over 35%. Shigeru Miyamoto speaks about his plans for the N64 in the future, including his latest big game, Star Fox 64, explaining how he'd taken the idea of Space Invaders and improved upon it so everyone could have fun. The page also mentions Zero 64 and Mother 3, Earthbound 64, being confirmed, along with two unnamed titles, one assumed to be Zelda 64. Miyamoto comments on Banjo-Kazooie and reveals a team of over 20 people are working on Super Mario RPG 64 to be released sometime in 1998. The page has screenshots from titles such as a mech game for Zero 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, alongside a large image of Mario. This page is a tongue-in-cheek report from E3, highlighting the distractions from the games themselves, mainly in the form of attractive women hired by companies. There's a top 5 list, starting with a Nintendo girl at the GoldenEye 007 stand who impressed with her GoldenEye skills. The second is the Barbarian, a model at the Eidos stand posing for photos. The article jokingly refers to another as Miss Heavy Gear, from Total PlayStation magazine. It then lists top 10 things to find in your pocket after a day at the E3, from notepad full of phone numbers from Eidos girls, to a wine gum you'd forgotten about, followed by 10 things actually found in pocket after a day at E3, such as an Eidos pen and an empty crisp packet. There are various related screenshots and pictures throughout the page. This page is a collection of photos and humorous commentary from E3. The article is titled, The E3 Photo Album, and is part of the Total 64 Game of Show section. It features photos of Eidos bouncers, described as leather-clad lovelies, and a group of women described as the Bond girls, who are strategically placed in the GoldenEye 007 section of the Nintendo stand. The writer sarcastically comments on their slightly bored expressions and suggests they might be made of cardboard. The GoldenEye 007 game is heavily praised, with the writer calling it the best game they've ever played. They highlight its varied mission objectives, settings based on the GoldenEye film, and the enhanced difficulty settings. The multiplayer mode, despite being present in Hexen 64, is described as a revelation due to its clean graphics. The writer also mentions the satisfaction of using the sniper rifle in the game. The page concludes with a comment that E3 wasn't just about games and girls, mentioning WCW wrestlers promoting their games and naming a giant 64 joypad and the Barbie stand as highlights. The next page is a Showcase 64 feature, highlighting several upcoming Nintendo 64 games from E3. First up is Banjo-Kazooie, touted as the game Nintendo fans were waiting for, comparing the gameplay to Mario 64 but with enhanced features and graphics. The article mentions the ability to switch between characters with the press of a button. Next, Conker's Quest is described as similar to Banjo-Kazooie, sharing similarities with Mario 64, but with a squirrel protagonist. The game is noted to be in an earlier stage of development and aimed at a slightly younger audience. Extreme G is presented as a super-fast, super-smooth racing game that surpasses Wipeout 2097. The early version had only 4 of the 12 tracks available, unfinished weapons, and limited background detail. However, all this only excited them more. ISS Soccer 64, despite being available elsewhere, was a first for many American players at the show, impressing the crowd with what is said to be the greatest footy/soccer game ever. Finally, Lamborghini 64 builds on a previous look in Issue 5. Driving the Ridge Racer-style car using the analog stick was tricky, but the reviewer was venturing into hidden shortcuts after a few laps. The game is said to look nice but may face stiff competition upon release. Grengious. This page continues the N64 showcase from E3, featuring more upcoming titles. NFL Quarterback Club 98 is showcased, noted for being one of the first N64 titles to use high-resolution mode and looking stunning. Star Fox 64 is next, highlighting the multiplayer setup on a cinema screen with rumble chairs in life-size R-Wings. The reviewer laments not having time to join the lengthy queue to play it. WCW vs. NWO is featured, touted as potentially breaking the mold of traditional wrestling games, boasting over 60 wrestlers and 40 moves each, as well as a 4-player mode. Top Gear Rally closes the game previews, with the reviewer saying that it is set to do for the N64 what Sega Rally and Rally have done for their respective platforms, and noting the impressive graphics and track design. The page concludes with a memories section, featuring photos from the event, including the reviewer in a photo with people dressed up as Mortal Kombat characters. The text notes they couldn't show more photos because of their adult nature. The next page provides a light-hearted report from E3, focusing on the Rapide Boys on tour. Various members of the magazine staff, including Mark Smith, Chris Mark, Mark Garrity, Ian Roxburgh, John Evans, Justin Calvert, and Miles Guttery, are humorously profiled with anecdotes from their time at the show. It's a fun, personality-driven piece about their experiences. The rest of the page is an advert for the retailer New Generation consoles. It lists the consoles they sell: PlayStation, PC, N64, Saturn, Super NES, Amiga, and includes prices for US and Japanese N64 games, plus details of universal converters and second-hand games from £29.99. There are UK N64 games available, and they also offer part exchange. This page is a competition to win N64 console and 3 games of your choice. You just have to answer the simple question: where was this year's E3 show held? Choices are Atlanta, Boston, California, or Devon. Closing date is September 5, 1997, so good luck. This page introduces a review section called The Truth, where reviewers openly share their opinions on games, explaining how scores are determined and encouraging reader engagement with alternative viewpoints. It features picks of the bunch, highlighting favorite games from the review team, and includes a percentage-based scoring system. The next page features a review of Hexen 64. The reviewer questions whether the game has stood the test of time after arriving on consoles almost 2 years after its PC release. The article describes Hexen as a cross between Doom and a fantasy RPG, albeit one lacking in role-playing elements. It criticizes the game for not offering much beyond the basic first-person shooter formula established by Doom and Wolfenstein 3D. The reviewer notes the lack of significant improvements in the genre, despite the emergence of titles like Duke Nukem and the forthcoming GoldenEye 007. The review suggests Hexen 64 is largely unoriginal, and fails to take risks. This page is a review of Hexen 64, a game the reviewer sees as a poor Doom clone. They find it surprising that the same company is responsible for both games, suggesting the programmers intentionally made Hexen 64 less appealing. The reviewer criticizes the dull graphics, repetitive level design, and the unnecessary revisiting of central levels. The game's character selection is presented, showing the fighter, cleric, and mage classes. The page ends with a jab, saying that the church in the game is more likely to contain fireballs than Harry Seacombe. This page continues the Hexen 64 review. The reviewer maintains their critical stance, pointing out the boring nature of the level design, the weak underwater action, and the state of the player's armor. They also comment on the game's enemy designs, weapon selection, and the questionable design choices made by the developers. Overall, the review continues to be largely negative. The next page features a review of Hexen 64. The reviewer is clearly not impressed, stating that the game doesn't utilize the N64's advanced capabilities. Combat is described as taking place toe-to-toe, leading to a loss of clarity for the enemy sprites. They also bemoan the poor enemy eye. The reviewer sarcastically notes the game's attempt to enhance the graphics by making monsters go soft focus when you get close, finding it completely awful. The limited weapon selection and level design also come under fire. Overall, the reviewer isn't a fan, recommending that readers save their money for Duke Nukem instead. This page continues the Hexen 64 review, and it isn't getting any better. The game is described as Hexen for all the family, but with sarcasm, showing screenshots where players are nowhere near each other in multiplayer. The reviewer notes that players often complete entire levels without seeing each other, and questions the suitability of split-screen first-person shooters. They also mention the simplistic monster AI, and the annoyance of replaying levels in deathmatch due to the lack of dedicated maps. And it's not a Mario Kart 64 or Star Fox 64 experience. The next page is a review of Hexen 64. The reviewer, Nick, questions why this game is on the N64, especially after Doom and Turok. He calls it a cheap attempt at a cash-in, and it looks dated, like a straight PC port that doesn't take advantage of the N64's power. The graphics are bland, and the level design lacks imagination. The only positive is the 4-player deathmatch mode, but even that becomes tiresome quickly, and it's hardly an enjoyable multiplayer experience. Nick suggests that gamers wait for Duke Nukem instead. He notes that the levels look similar, making it hard to find targets. The reviewer also states that Hexen originally appealed because of its RPG elements, but a lot of time has passed since then. He questions why the game was released at all, as it's a latecomer to the N64 genre, which already includes Doom 64 and Turok. The scores are also given with a heavy heart, as graphics are 69, sound is 70, playability is 62, and the overall score is 63. This page is a review of Go Go Troublemakers, and the reviewer seems to think it's terrible, even apologizing for ever doubting Mario. He refers to it as a god-awful game. The page features screenshots of the game, showing colorful but somewhat confusing 2D platforming action. The reviewer compares it to Mario 64, implying it's a disappointment. He criticizes the game as a tired and conventional 2D platform romp. There's some discussion of Mario's success and how the N64 is holding up against the PlayStation and Saturn. The next page continues the somewhat scathing review of Go Go Troublemakers, or as the reviewer sarcastically suggests, puke. The reviewer, Miles, says he likes it in a way, describing it as a colorful, albeit confusing, mess of jelly rainbow full of sponge fingers and cherries. He mentions the game is cute with chubby sprites but laments that you won't know what's going on if you don't read Japanese. He grudgingly admits the colors are nice. The page also features screenshots from the game. Then it jumps back to a review of Mario 64, claiming it provides a ray of sunshine on an otherwise cloudy page. This page features a review of Go Go Troublemakers, or Yuke Troublemakers. The reviewer, Justin, acknowledges that it is a textbook platformer, with side-scrolling 2D levels, with the objective of progression. The game has been described as familiar with an android cleaning maid character named Marina, who must rescue her master. The reviewer acknowledges the game's familiar elements and dated feel, but suggests there's still enjoyment to be had if you can get past that. Also featured is a section titled Cast of Characters, which showcases some of the game's characters, including the heroine, Marina, and an unnamed evil adversary. There are also some game screenshots accompanying the review. Layo. The next page features a review of Go Go Troublemakers, or Yuk Troublemakers, for the N64. The reviewer, Justin, seems a bit baffled by the game's plot and dialogue, pointing out that the graphics are not up to par for the N64, comparing them to 16-bit games. He also mentions the sound is dismal if the visuals are poor. The review concludes with a verdict box, giving the game a graphics score of 39, a sound score of 32, playability score of 46, and an overall score of 43. Screenshots show gameplay and some of the characters warrant a. This page is a reviews roundup section, kicking off with Blast Corps, a game where you bulldoze anything in your path. The reviewer enjoyed it, comparing it favorably to Pilot Wings, and highlights its action, puzzles and explosions, giving it a score of 89. Next up is Cruisin' USA, and the reviewer isn't holding back, calling it a bad version of Outrun on a 64-bit machine, even suggesting players would be better off playing Rage Racer on the PlayStation. He hates the graphics, playability and the sluggishness of the game, giving it a miserable score of 59. Finally, there's Doom 64, which the reviewer loves, stating that despite not comparing to the PC games like Duke Nukem, it nails the atmosphere. This game gets a solid score of 92, with the reviewer commenting that his Mario 64 cartridge has been gathering dust since he received the game. The next page features 3 game reviews. First is Doraemon, which the reviewer finds difficult to avoid comparing to Mario 64. Despite some original ideas, the similarities outweigh the uniqueness, resulting in a score of 69. FIFA 64 is reviewed next. The reviewer says this was an alright football game, but the arrival of ISS Soccer 64 blew it out of the water and forced them to reconsider their initial enthusiasm. The reviewer notes how amazing ISS is compared to FIFA 64 and gives it a final score of 58. Lastly, there's Human Grand Prix. The reviewer jokes about his long hair and open tops, but finds the game's pop-up graphics and lack of realism disappointing. The right-angled corners on the tracks frustrate him, and he concludes with a sarcastic, "No thank you human," a final score of 80. This page features roundup reviews of 4 games. First up is International Superstar Soccer 64, ISS 64, which the reviewer claims is the best footy game ever, surpassing even FIFA 64. They praise its superior graphics and realistic gameplay, stating it's a must-have for football fans, giving it a score of 97. Next is J-League Perfect Striker, noted for its hilarious player animations, particularly when players try to get up after a foul. The gameplay is decent, especially in 2-player mode, making it a worthy addition to any footy sim collection, with a score of 93. Then there's Killer Instinct Gold, where the reviewer suggests playing it on ludicrous speed for an adrenaline rush. While initially fast and furious, it lacks the subtlety of Tekken and suffers from jerky animation, particularly during 32-move combos, with a score of 69. Finally, King of Pro Baseball was initially praised for its cutesy graphics and 2-player mode. However, due to the difficulty of finding a human opponent and the frustrating 1-player mode, its score has been reduced from 91 to 82. This page features more roundup reviews, this time for Mario Kart 64, which the reviewer acknowledges has better graphics and new tracks, but questions the point of souped-up versions of old Nintendo titles. They concede it's fun and addictive, especially in multiplayer, giving it a score of 93. Next up is Mortal Kombat Trilogy, with the reviewer wondering why it was even released on the N64, as it looks the same as every other version. The reviewer tells players to wait for a decent 3D fighter, giving it a score of 78. Lastly, Pilot Wings 64 is touted as a classic game, the reviewer stating that 9 out of 10 64 owners in the Total 64 office preferred the manic and explosive gameplay of Blast Corps. In light of this, they reduced the score, but it's still rated as a must-buy. The Issue 1 score is 95, but the current score is 91. The next page contains more game reviews. Star Fox 64 is reviewed, praising its variety with tank, submarine and open levels. The multiplayer is a highlight despite the small viewing windows. The Issue 4 score is a solid 96. Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire is criticized for not living up to the hype, with many disappointed buyers. The reviewer warns others to avoid it, giving it an Issue 1 score of 61 and a current score of just 49. St. Andrew's Old Course Golf gets a roasting, as it's apparently been gathering dust in the office since its initial review. The fact that it's in Japanese doesn't help, and the reviewer couldn't redeem it, awarding an Issue 1 score of 58 and a current score of 42. Finally, Super Mario 64 is hailed as possibly the greatest video game ever, praised for bringing Mario to life in a convincing 3D world, with all the familiar Mario traits present. The Issue 1 score is a fantastic 96. This page features a trio of game reviews. First up is Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, which the reviewer admits to not being a huge fan of this type of game, but praises the graphics and atmospheric sounds. The variety of enemy deaths is a highlight, and the reviewer recommends buying it to hold you over until Doom 64 arrives. Its score is a mighty 93. Next is Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey, described as the best ice hockey game on the market but potentially boring for non-hockey fans. It's fast-paced with a good multiplayer mode but ultimately shallow, with an Issue 2 score of 90 and a current score of 82. Lastly, War Gods draws comparisons to Mortal Kombat, but in wondrous 3D. The reviewer laments that MK has become dated since Virtua Fighter, making it only suitable for hardcore MK fans. This brawler gets an Issue 5 score of 76. The next page is a reviews roundup, kicking off with Wave Race 64, with the reviewer comparing the experience to a Northampton Pond escapade, but without a Pamela Anderson-type lifeguard. It scores a solid 96. Then it's Wonder Project J2, which the reviewer was looking forward to until they realized that the game is too realistic, and the characters only speak Japanese, which is a barrier. It gets a less enthusiastic score of 69. This page is a full-page advert from Excitement Direct, your one-stop shop for all things Nintendo 64 back in the day. They're slinging consoles, games, and accessories with a price list of items, with the focus on the Nintendo 64 console. You could snag a console bundle with Mario Kart 64, or International Superstar Soccer 64 for £184.99, or just the console with Wave Race 64 for £181.99. There is also a range of N64 games at various prices, like Blast Corps, FIFA Soccer 64, Mario 64, and Star Fox 64. And if you wanted to trick out your console, they had colored controllers and SharkPad Pro 64 pads. If you're a fan of Super Nintendo, then they had a list of classics, from Bassmaster's Classic to Yoshi's Island. The next page is The Firing Line, a letters section sponsored by Fire International, purveyors of Blaze video game accessories. One reader loves the magazine and completed Mario 64 in a mere 9 days and asks for a more challenging game. The truth, suggests Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, Pilot Wings, Wave Race 64, ISS 64, or Mario Kart 64. Another reader recounts their quest to purchase an N64 after seeing it on TV and how the price drop swayed their decision. This fella also asks whether to buy Wave Race 64 or International Superstar Soccer, and gets the suggestion that ISS 64 is the best sports game, while Wave Race 64 is a top racing game, so you can't go wrong with either. The firing line continues, with a reader praising the magazine and requesting a lastability rating for game reviews, and seeking advice on whether to buy Mario Kart 64 or Star Fox 64, and if extra controllers are worth it. Another reader, with a variety of N64 games, wants a car racing game and asks about the UK release dates for Rev Limit and Lamborghini 64, as well as why the US and Japan get games first. The Truth responds that those games are unlikely before Christmas, but Top Gear Rally and Multi-Racing Championship might come sooner. A Usus reader inquires about J-League Perfect Striker, and is advised that the improved International Superstar Soccer 64 is likely to be available soon. The delay in PAL region releases is attributed to optimization issues and Nintendo's perceived lower value of the PAL market. The next page is H4 Letters, featuring reader letters and responses from the magazine staff. One reader, James Morgan from Cardiff, recounts buying an N64 and Mario, then being offered a refund due to a price drop. The magazine explains this was due to increased production and PlayStation's price cut. Another reader, Jamie Ash from Sussex, defends both PlayStation and N64, arguing playability is more important than graphics. Then there's Nicola Sorrell from Peterborough, who asks about Pilot Wings 2, a light gun, Mortal Kombat 4's Jolt Packs, 64DD release, and import games. The magazine responds that Pilot Wings 2 is likely on cartridge, light gun rumors are unfounded, they haven't heard about Jolt Packs for Mortal Kombat, the 64DD is expected to be cheaper than cartridges but may require cartridges to run, and to check adverts for import game companies. Finally, Alex Doyle from Solihull asks about the game's address, Blast Corps release, 64DD release, /price /built-in clock, and why the mag is so great. The response is, the game's address is provided, Blast Corps should be out in August and worth the wait, the 64DD Isn't expected until Christmas '98 at the earliest. The built-in clock is a rumor, and the mag is great, because we make it that way. This page, titled The Firing Line Letters, continues the Reader Letters section. A reader praises the magazine but bemoans the lack of N64 game choice and high prices. Another reader complains about the spook memory pack and controllers, and the magazine admits the controllers aren't great, but the memory packs might be at fault. The page includes a Picks Win Prizes section, showing fan art and awarding Michael Armstrong from Brighton a year's subscription. There's a drawing of Duke Nukem 64 by Scott Moulding from Surrey, and art from Luke Hamilton from Surrey, plus Christopher Dunleavy from Newcastle upon Tyne and John Evans Hunter's Mile 64 artwork. The magazine encourages readers to submit entries for a chance to win a free subscription, and to include name, address, and age on a large envelope. This page continues the letters section. Chris Southam shares a speedrunning trick for Mario Kart 64 on Wario Stadium, aiming for a sub 30-second time, but forgets to include the diagram. John Finney asks about the 64 days release and import machines, plus a bit about buying an import console, and the price of an N64 and games in the US. The magazine responds, confirming the Japanese 64D isn't expected until spring '98, and the UK even later. It also mentions an RGB SCART cable and universal converter for import games. Dexam. Another reader, David Saxton, asks if League Perfect Striker is the Japanese version of ISS-64. It is, and about Datal Game Killer cards. The magazine confirms the UK version of Perfect Striker is better, and cards for the game killer are scarce. Terry Brown requests more free posters. The magazine explains the black plastic thing on Nintendo control pads is a safety device. A reader also recalls a secret road in Mario Kart 64. The next page features more letters. Michael Anderson from Grimsby criticizes the magazine's screenshot quality and price, suggesting they may have written the Ryan Jones letter themselves. The Truth section defends the magazine, asserting the screenshots are fine and they contacted Ryan Jones to prove his existence. Then a letter from Ryan Jones, who assures everyone he's real and a 14-year-old N64 owner, lists his top 3 N64 games: ISS-64, Mario 64, and Mario Kart 64. The magazine responds playfully, confirming Ryan's existence and sending him an extender cable. The next section covers making waves, highlighting Trevor's dominance in a UK competition, although he was caught using a start button cheat. The Nakin US charts were temporarily taken over by Scott McIntosh, while Justin was in Atlanta, but he regained his crown. High scores and times are listed for games such as Dolphin Park, Sunny Beach, Sunset Bay, Drake Lake, Marine Fortress, Port Blue, Twilight City, Glacier Coast, and Southern Island with best lap and race times. This page presents Extras! 5 more ways to spend your money on 64 peripherals. First is the Interact SharkPad Pro controller with a clear casing, praised for its comfort and responsive buttons. Available now from Madeira Games for £29.99. Then there is the Blaze Ultra 64 RF unit, a direct replacement for the standard RF unit, available now from Fire International for £14.99. This page features a few peripherals for your N64. First up is the Blaze Multi-SCART connector, allowing you to connect up to 4 SCART appliances to a TV. Available from Fire International for £19.99. It's compatible with camcorders, videos, satellite receivers, and game consoles. Next is the Blaze Multi-RF/AV selector, connecting up to 4 AV/RF appliances to a single TV, also from Fire International, priced at £24.99. The reviewer mentions it has better quality than the SCART, so worth giving it a try if you have a TV that accepts the signal, and they also mention you can play a game whilst listening to the sound through your stereo as a bonus. Betawa. Lastly, the Interact V3 steering wheel comes with accelerator and brake pedals. The reviewer found Cruisin' USA more playable with the wheel than the normal controller, but Mario Kart 64 was a different story and steering was extremely difficult. It's available from Interact for £79.99. One minor disappointment is the pedals aren't analog, so it's either on or off with nothing in between. The next page presents the conclusion to Turok, The Empty Souls. The comic panels show Turok in a series of intense phone conversations, revealing his fears and uncertainties about his lineage, with dialogue such as "Viv. I'm scared," and "Are you made of stone?", culminating in his desperate plea to hide out. The visuals are dramatic and action-packed, depicting Turok's emotional turmoil and the threats he faces. There is a panel depicting a memory of the character shutting the van door, and the phrase written on the van reads, "Jink jink," which sounds like a potential joke. The next page presents another installment of the Turok comic. The comic panels show Turok in a series of conversations, using the lens thing to spy on the dinosaurs. The dialogue is action-packed, with references to the Protector of Earth being lured into a trap, including the mention of an aluminum bat, Bowie knife, and an oversized monocle for protection. The Pinto is referred to as wheezing its way to the Saksham village, along with a comment about the character being the only person at Ok 2 with a car that has asthma. The next page continues the Turok comic, featuring action sequences, dialogue, and sound effects. Turok faces off against a large green reptilian monster, with mentions of magic, bone claws, and sparks flying. The characters exchange dialogue, including references to an Uzi and a breastplate, adding to the comic's intensity. This page continues the Turok comic, with more intense action. Turok and other characters are in peril, tied up and facing imminent danger, with one character yelling for Vivian and Ali. Another panel shows Turok in action, firing a gun at a monstrous dinosaur-like creature, with the sounds prap prap and fchik accompanying the violence. Turok's internal monologue adds a touch of humor to the carnage, and there are dialogues and sound effects scattered around the page. The next page showcases more of the Turok comic, continuing the storyline. Turok finds himself in a tight spot, facing off against a hulking, mutated creature, while trying to protect some children. There's some intense dialogue, and the usual comic book sound effects, with Turok clearly struggling against overwhelming odds. This page continues the Turok comic, showcasing Turok battling a large monster while protecting children, with dramatic sound effects and dialogue. The next page continues the Turok comic, showing Turok in dialogue with a green reptilian character, followed by scenes of characters in what seems to be a modern-day setting, with discussion about Coach and a breaking ball. This page continues the Turok comic, with a modern-day setting. There's talk of dinosaurs, the Solidarity Order, and someone knowing a bit too much. One character contemplates whether he's dreaming, and suggests a road trip. It ends with, "The end." The next page is the front cover of a PC gaming magazine, screaming, "New!" in big red letters. It bills itself as the ultimate magazine for die-hard PC gamers, and promises 164 pages of PC news, previews and reviews. Lara Croft from Tomb Raider is prominently featured, alongside mentions of Tomb Raider 2 and Dark Colony. The cover shouts about an exclusive demo CD with every issue, and boasts about free sample issues. This page is the front cover of the magazine, advertising the ultimate PC magazine, boasting it's the first issue offer for only £2.50. It is on sale August 29th, so don't miss it. Also features Tomb Raider 2 and Dark Colony. There is a sample sign-up form to reserve a copy. The next page showcases the N64 game Blast Corps. It's part of a Total 64's guide to help you save the world from destruction. The page features screenshots of gameplay and the main character, promising a city-smashing good time with an army of demolition vehicles. It seems like it's a tips and cheats section to guide players through the game. This page dives into the training levels of Blast Corps, providing tips for mastering each one. It highlights vehicles like the Backlash, J-Bomb, and Thunderfist, offering strategies for completing objectives and earning gold medals. There's also a section dedicated to the vehicles themselves, with advice on how to effectively use each one. Lighting 100% of the RDUS will unlock another gold medal when you return to each level, and don't forget to use the bumps at the end of buildings to smash them more quickly. The next page continues the Blast Corps training, focusing on advanced techniques for levels like Jade Plateau, Sleek Streets, Marine Quarter and Silver Junction. It offers specific advice on destroying buildings, using shortcuts, turbo starts, and locating hidden crates. The guide also gives Skyfall vehicle tips, stressing to press the Z button for maximum destruction. Finally, there's a touch of apocalyptic humor thrown in, reminding players that the fate of the world rests on their skills. This page is dedicated to demolition stages in an unspecified game, maybe Blast Corps. It kicks off with Micah Park, where the mission is to destroy 17 buildings in under 2 minutes, with a gold target of 50 seconds. Accuracy is key, and ammo isn't a problem. Next up is Simeon Acres, featuring the American Dream and Ram Dozer vehicles. The goal involves pushing TNT across a train track to clear the path for the nuclear truck, and getting the race car to the station. Next Ducker. Finally, Carrick Point offers the Ballista, Sideswipe, and Thunderfist vehicles. The advice is to grab the Thunderfist, destroy buildings, and then use the Ballista to take out a ship by targeting crates, blowing everything sky high. The next page is the 64 tip zone, continuing the trend of explosive strategies, most likely for Blast Corps. Argent Towers features the Backlash, Ballista, J-Bomb, and Police Car. The goal is to destroy 14 buildings, rescue 8 survivors, find 1 scientist, and hit 2 communication points. The walkthrough involves using different vehicles in sequence, from pushing TNT blocks with the Ramdozer, to navigating underground tunnels with the train, and destroying flashing towers with the J-Bomb motorcycle. Havoc District uses the Ballista, J-Bomb, Race Car and Skyfall vehicles. The level has 22 buildings, 10 survivors and 2 communication points. The walkthrough involves following RDUS in Skyfall, clearing a path for the truck, and finding hidden tunnels by stepping on darker patches of grass. Tempest City uses the Ballista. The level has 25 buildings, 20 survivors, 1 scientist and 1 communication point. The walkthrough focuses on destroying a large grey building to access a ramp, leading to the communication tower and the scientist. A warning comes up when the end is nigh. This page continues the tips zone, focusing on Beaten Tracks, Echo Marches, and Ironstone Mine. Beaten Tracks involves vehicles like the Police Car and Ramdozer, tasks the player with destroying 6 buildings and hitting 1 communication point. The walkthrough details using the train to reach a station, then using the Ramdozer to destroy a small building, before using a crane to position the Ramdozer and push a TNT crate. Echo Marches uses the J-Bomb, Big Red and American Dream vehicles, tasks the player with destroying 20 buildings, rescuing 15 survivors, and hitting 2 communication points. The walkthrough mentions taking the train over ramps, using the barge to make a bridge, and using the J-Bomb to navigate tunnels. Ironstone Mine uses the Ramdozer, Sideswipe and Thunderfist vehicles, tasks the player with destroying 31 buildings, rescuing 20 survivors, and finding 1 scientist. The walkthrough describes using the Sideswipe to clear buildings, the Thunderfist to destroy more buildings, and a train to reach the Ramdozer. There's a tip to follow trenches to find secret areas and scientists, and to watch the arrow in the corner for guidance. The next page continues the tip zone, now focusing on Ebony Coast, Glory Crossing and Crystal Rift. Ebony Coast features the J-Bomb and Ramdozer vehicles, 18 buildings to destroy, 20 survivors to rescue, 1 scientist to find, and 1 communication point to reach. The walkthrough advises using the J-Bomb to find a large island with a field hieroglyphic, destroying grey stones blocking the train track with a TNT crate, and destroying the train station with the Ramdozer, with the statue containing the J-Bomb being destroyed. The scientist is in a hidden cove. Glory Crossing includes the Backlash vehicle, 14 buildings to destroy, 10 survivors to rescue, and 1 scientist to find. The walkthrough directs the player to follow the arrows over the bridge, destroy buildings, and find a tunnel leading to the scientist in the direction that the semi is pointing. Crystal Rift features the Ramdozer, Van, and Skyfall vehicles, 15 buildings to destroy, 10 survivors to rescue, and 2 communication points to reach. The walkthrough instructs the player to take the train, and then the Skyfall, destroy buildings, use the Ramdozer to fill holes with blocks, and push a dark grey block out of the first tunnel to find the van. This page continues the tip zone, now providing walkthroughs for Oyster Harbour. Oyster Harbour features the Ballista and Ramdozer vehicles. The tips guide the player through using the Ballista to clear containers, then switching to the Ramdozer to clear the path and find TNT crates, using the crane to place the TNT on the building, destroying the building piece by piece, filling holes with blocks, and positioning barges to move forward. The walkthrough continues to guide the player to loading the TNT crates onto the first barge to destroy the white blocks and rescue the scientist. The page includes screenshots illustrating key steps. This page moves on to War Gods, which is described as a Mortal Kombat-inspired 3D beat-em-up. The page presents universal moves applicable to all characters, noting that these basic moves alone won't make you a War Gods god. A green giant-like character is featured, flexing in a rather menacing manner. The moves include uppercuts, leg sweeps, roundhouses, throws, shoves, evasive get-ups, get-up attacks, pounce attacks, runs, 3D jumps, 3D walks, 3D slides, and a special ring finish. Screenshots of gameplay are included. Warrant. This page features a tips zone for war gods, giving move lists for several characters. The characters mentioned are Kabukijo, Tak, Maximus, Anubis, Sci-5, Pagan, Vala, and Warhead. The moves listed include combos, special attacks, fatalities, and 3D combo finishes for each character. Character images are included as well. Gadu. The next page continues the tips zone for war gods, and provides move lists for Voodoo and Ahaukin, including fatalities and 3D combo finishes. Additionally, the page reveals how to unlock Exa and Grox as playable characters via specific button combinations on the god selection screen. Cheat codes for random character selection, free play, and a cheat menu with easy fatalities are also detailed. It's a handy guide for players looking to master the game's secrets and special moves. This page is a full-page advertisement for Ultimate Solutions magazine, promoting walkthroughs and cheats for games on the Nintendo 64, PlayStation, and Saturn. Super Mario 64 and Soul Blade are highlighted on the cover. It proclaims all the big games smashed and is available for £4.95. The next page gives tips and cheats for cruising USA on the Nintendo 64, calling itself the Cheat Zone. It provides codes to access other courses, hidden cars like a Jeep, police car, and school bus. Another cheat enables flashing lights with a siren on the police car or school bus. And finally, a nitro boost is featured to be used once every checkpoint. This page dives into the dark and gritty world of Doom 64. It's got level codes galore for different skill levels. Be gentle, bring it on, I own Doom, and watch me die. Nellis Plus, a super password for starting on the last level with everything maxed out. If you're stuck in Doom 64, this page is your lifeline. It also gives a shout out to Justin McWilliams for all the Doom 64 stuff, along with a link to a website. Sukai. The next page features cheats and tips for J-League/ISS Soccer and Killer Instinct Gold. For J-League/ISS Soccer, it has a code for unlocking new teams, and a code for Big Head mode to make the game more silly, which it claims doesn't change the gameplay. Then it moves on to Killer Instinct Gold, with ways to access all the level options without beating the game, how to view the ending credits without beating the game, how to play as Gargos, and how to fight on the Sky stage by pressing down plus MK when selecting your character. This page is from Tips Zone, a section of the magazine dedicated to tips and cheats for games. It focuses on Super Mario 64, offering some bizarre secrets for the game. The first tip shows how to get multiple hats on Mario in Snowman's Land, using a teleport glitch after getting blown off the ice bridge. Another tip explains how to control the ending camera after defeating Bowser with a second controller. There's also a method to carry the rabbit from the basement to other areas of the castle. Lastly, it reveals that punching butterflies in certain courses turns them into bombs that either explode or become one-up mushrooms. The next page is all about Mario Kart 64, with some tips and cheats to spice things up. It starts with Race Against Course Ghosts, explaining how to unlock the development team's ghost data by beating certain times on Luigi Raceway, Mario Raceway, and Royal Raceway. Then there's the Boost trick, showing how to power slide around corners by holding the R button and steering the joystick. Speed Burst tells you to hit the gas as soon as the starting lights turn blue for a quick getaway. Finally, Mirrored Tracks explains how to unlock mirrored tracks by getting first place in every 150 Siaga. Looks like plenty of ways to make Mario Kart 64 even more bonkers. This page is packed with NBA hangtime cheats for the N64. It covers hidden players, accessible by entering specific names and pin numbers. There's a long list of these, including Amrich, Bardo, Carlos, and many more. There are also secret play modes unlocked via codes entered at the Tonight's Matchup screen, using Turbo, Shoot, and Pass buttons in sequence to activate things like baby-size players, Stealth Turbo, and No Goaltending. Finally, there are further secret codes for Big Heads, Huge Heads, Shot Percentage On, and other effects, activated by button combinations. The page also mentions Random Team Select, and changing Rodman's hair color. The next page features tips and cheats for Pilotwings 64, offering advice on finding Birdman stars across different islands, including Holiday Island, Crescent Island, Little States Island, Arctic Island, and Central Park. It also gives instructions on getting a perfect 100 on Jumble Hopper, which requires jumping between buildings and using doorways to teleport near the level's end. Additionally, there are challenge points instructions for Shadows of the Empire, detailing how to unlock swings and TIE fighters in the Skyhook battle by holding the camera button. The text makes a light joke about the awful Star Wars cash-in, plus it includes instructions on getting invincibility and the Wumpas from Escape from Echo Base to help in the game. This page showcases tips and cheats for Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, on the N64. It features several codes to be entered at the cheats screen, including DLKTDR for pen and ink mode, SNFFRR for disco mode, with strobe lights and dancing enemies, FRTHSTHTTRLSCK for infinite lives, and THBST to access a gallery to view, scale and rotate the 3D enemies. Other codes include FDTHMGS to show credits, and THSSLKSCL for spirit mode, which grants invincibility and slows enemy movement. Entering any of the codes will allow the player to access a cheat menu to turn each cheat on or off. The page includes screenshots of the game with Turok battling various dinosaurs, like a Trex and a Triceratops, and fighting enemies. The tone of the text is humorous and playful, talking about the secrets being yours for the picking, and jokingly wishing for a cheat to stop the bleeding Trex from scaring people. The next page offers tips and cheats for Wave Race 64. There's a guide on unlocking reverse tracks by getting first place on expert difficulty, and how to rack up massive scores on stunt courses by pausing at the right moment. There's a cheat to use the same racer in two-player mode, and instructions for pulling off new stunts, including the double flip, helicopter, helicopter into a flip, and triple flip. Also, there's a method to ride a dolphin in the game. Finally, there are some dolphin tricks explained, such as handstands and spins, plus an explanation on how to do a perfect speed burst start. This page is an advertisement for total 64 back issues, priced at £4.95 each, while stocks last. It showcases the covers of 5 previous issues, with issue number 1 featuring Super Mario, Wave Race and Shadows of the Empire, issue number 2, Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, issue number 3, Doom 64 and FIFA 64, issue number 4, Star Fox 64 and ISS Soccer 64, and issue number 5, Mario Kart, War Gods and Wonder Project. The first and fourth issues are marked as sold out. An order form is included to purchase copies. This page promotes subscriptions to Total 64, promising 12 copies for the price of 9. Banjo-Kazooie appears, likely as a mascot or featured game. The page highlights the in-depth reviews of Nintendo 64 games, with rigorous game testing to ensure quality. A review of Go! Troublemakers is featured, with the reviewer admitting they were wrong about Mario but find this game awful. There's also a tips and solutions section, promising expert advice and cheats. Tips and solutions for War Gods are featured, with a table of moves and button combinations for various characters: Kabukijo, Tuck, Psi-5, Maximus, Pagan, Anubis, Vala, and Warhead. The next page is a subscription form for Total 64 magazine, advertising a subscription for £35 including delivery in the UK, or £45 for Europe. The page mentions games like GoldenEye 007, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Quest, Blast Corps, WCW vs NWO, Hexen 64, Go! Troublemakers, Robotech 64, and Duke Nukem 64. This page is a full-page advert for the Pocketbook of Nintendo 64 Hints and Tips Volume 1 from Rapide Publishing, the makers of Total 64 magazine, a handy guide featuring hints, strategies and secrets for 10 of the biggest N64 games, including Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, Super Mario 64 and Wave Race. It includes a coupon to order for £10.99. The next page is a next month teaser for the upcoming issue. It highlights the reviews of Dark Rift, a fighting game touted as the ultimate fighter for the Ultimate Console, Multi-Racing Championship, which they speculate might be the racer fans have been waiting for, and Blast Corps, featuring Part 2 of their complete solution and a comprehensive UK review. There's also a plus section mentioning Extreme G, GoldenEye 007, and Clay Fighter 63 1/3. The on-sale date is listed as August 31st Street. The next page is the sign-off page from Total 64, featuring a message from Justin Calvert, the editor. He humorously laments being stuck in the office on a sunny Sunday, while girls are out enjoying the weather. He mentions the hard work put into the magazine, particularly the time spent in America. The page also includes a nod to upcoming reviews in issue 7, teasing Multi-Racing Championship, Clay Fighter 63 1/3, and Dark Rift. He finishes by signing off, hinting at long nights of gameplay ahead before the next deadline. The page includes magazine staff credits, distributor details, American offices and legal disclaimers. The page is dominated by an image of a wrestler and an American flag. This page is a full-page advert for Special Reserve, highlighting their Nintendo 64 offerings. They boast over 300,000 members, and market themselves as the biggest games club. There are deals on Nintendo 64 consoles, games, and accessories, and an enticement to join their club for free gifts. You can also enter a contest to win a Lotus Elise and other prizes. The next page is a full-page advert for Total 64 magazine, with Hulk Hogan on the cover, and the logo for Rapide Publishing is at the bottom of the page.